But there are so many things that we can do with technology, so many things.
Hello there, and welcome to today's episode of the Easy EdTech podcast. My name is Monica Burns, and I am so glad that you're here to join me today. If you want to make the most of education technology, aka EdTech, well, you are in the right place. My goal has always been to help make EdTech easier and give you ideas you can try yourself, share with a colleague, or bookmark for later in the school year. Every Tuesday here on the Easy EdTech podcast, you'll hear stories from my time in the classroom, the work I do now with schools and districts, and my travels to different EdTech events. Get ready for solo episodes where I share some quick tips and stories, and interviews full of practical ideas and stories from new guests each month. If we mention something you'd like to check out, make sure to click the link. You'll find it in the episode description or the summary area where you're listening to this podcast, or you can find every episode and all of the resources we mention by going to classtechtips.com/podcast. Or by going to classtechtips.com and just clicking on the Easy EdTech podcast button at the top of the page. This episode is sponsored by the blog at classtechtips.com. If you're looking for wintertime activities or ways to make connections between the season and what you're teaching, then head over to the blog page of classtechtips.com. You'll find a search bar where you can type in keywords like winter, Thanksgiving, or bulletin board ideas. You name it. So head over to classtechtips.com/blog and use the search bar to find over 1,000 blog posts and podcast episodes full of ideas to try. This week's episode is titled Classroom Tips for Comic Strips with Danielle Zélin. Danielle is a bilingual educator who's worked with students in a variety of roles. I first came across her work on Edutopia, and I reached out to see if she would join me for today's episode. We talk all about creativity in the classroom and how to bring comic strips into your next lesson. You might hear that the episode has a moment where the Zoom kind of goes in and out, but appreciate you sticking with us for this awesome conversation on what you can do to boost creativity with students and check for understanding too. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to chat with you today about comic strips in the classroom. But before we dive in, can you share with listeners a bit about your role in education? What does your day-to-day look like?
Hi, everybody. So I'm Danielle Zélin. I come from Little Paradise Island, Mauritius. And actually, my day-to-day life is quite interesting because I used to work in schools and have more than 25 years of experience. So nowadays, I'm running my own little after-school English club and as a National Geographic educator. So what I do is merging National Geographic resources and English because I'm an English teacher at TESOL 1 particularly because in Mauritius we are bilingual, but English is still a second language for us. So most of the time I wake up actually very early in the morning because I'm a morning person. And morning time, it would be either crafting some program, some youth program, or other activities that I would love to do with my students in the afternoon. And then so after school, the kids will come. Some of them will come individually because I do one-to-one teaching. And other times it will be groups of children that will come home. So my latest session finishes at 7:30 in the evening. And I don't work on Fridays. But on Fridays, I mainly do also if I have some meetings. Like this year, I started eco-educating with an NGO called We Recycle that has to do with plastic pollution. And the first term we did a campaign in different primary school in Mauritius, but now we are third term here. And we do more like interaction with social groups or other NGOs. So this is my day-to-day life.
Yeah, no, and your perspective, working with NGOs, working with students in different types of programs and settings, and your work around really leveraging comic strips, right, as a way to check for understanding is one of the reasons I was so excited to have you on the podcast today. And for someone who might not be familiar with a comic strip, right, we kind of think of comics as maybe being a few different things, but for someone who's not familiar with a comic strip, what does it include? What are some of the essential components of a comic strip?
So the idea of comic strips, actually, it was like, I know my student, and in my session with my student, there's always a creative art, be it a collage or it could be a painting or drawing, lots of drawing. They love drawing because in at school, actually, with the heavy, let's say, program that they have with the curriculum, they don't have that time. So I offer them that space, and I could see like how each one of them, they take the time to draw, and then I thought like, hey, yeah, why not,
Mhm.
And so you can create comic books actually. And for the comic strip, I chose, like, for the one I chose, it's a 6 box comic strip.
Mhm.
So there are different ways that you can have it. So you have some website where you can download free templates, or you can go on Canva and then you create your own one, or sometimes they already have template already in place, so you just use it. But I love having them printing out, because we use the colors, the felt tips, the colored pencil. And the first time I tried comic strip, it was just storytelling, And
Mhm.
the one thing we did, like, okay, you like that part of the story. If I did a storytelling, like reading a story to them, so I tell them, like, okay, you've heard the story, and now we are going to use those 6 boxes to maybe do the flow of the story itself. So
Mhm.
each box will have a part of the story, and then they can do the background, understand them. Like, okay, yes, you have the characters, but also we need to know where it happens, and if there are some details that you remember, just put it like from imagination. I think it's helping the creative mind, and it may not look the same. Like, maybe if there's a comic or there's a story with a picture, but they will create their own.
Mhm.
And I think this is a very potent skill to develop, because this helped them to connect the neurons inside, and they say like, oh yeah, I like this one, and I that part of the story, this is what I want in the comic strip.
I love that idea of keeping it simple, right? The 6 boxes,
Yes.
really anchoring that as your way of having a focus for students, right? Because we know that a comic strip, right, could get overwhelming or it could turn into something much bigger, which is great. But if your primary goal is around checking for understanding, having kids think critically and choose their moments strategically, right, keeping it simple is huge. So, from a formative assessment standpoint, how do comic strips help kids demonstrate their understanding of a topic or concept? What kind of things are you asking for or looking for when they're doing this?
So I think, like, first thing first, I mean, like, through the article, we have gone a little bit more in details about that. So I will take the straight example of what I did with the free art plastic. So before that, we did different activities, because it was about recycling. It was about the free art attitude, because the free art, so reduce, reuse, and recycle plastic.
Mhm.
We've been watching some videos and also tell a story about cleaning our beaches here in Mauritius. We're a little island, so the ocean and the beach they are very important. And we have also been visiting a recycling center, and so to come up to the comic strip, and as a form of assessment, is they had to tell a little story of a 6 box, and make sure that they have those 3 words included
Mhm.
in the comic strip. So reduce, reuse, recycle. And since my students, some of them are 7, others they are like 15,
Mhm.
and it will depend. It will depend. Some I am the most important are those 3 words. They should be in those 3 words. Now, connecting with the drawing now, I know lots of them sometimes they are just shy, or they have I would not say the perfectionist thing, that they want things to be right, and I think it has to do also how we have been trained or educated, like if this is not good. So I give them that space to draw as they wish. So, but to make sure also some instruction, like I want to see what are the actions you are doing to reduce, reuse, and recycle. So it could be as simple as possible or as complex as they want. So some of them have really given me some very complex drawing, and in that drawing itself, like in one box, you will say, "Oh my God, this is amazing," and seeing the details, because the activity was the free ocean superhero. So as an ocean superhero, what do you do to reduce? So you will see some of them flying in the ocean, like a superhero having that power. Now I'm going to pick all the plastic bottles from the sea so that the turtle doesn't die, and I think like it's really engaging, actually, because I didn't expect that. And when I saw the drawing, this is where I understood, like, yes, this is a very, very potent assessment. So I know now that they were sort of embodying a superhero, and to really integrate the three R's in there through their drawing. And the sentences also, they will just write, yeah, I reduce plastic by, instead of using a shower gel plastic, I will use a soap. So they will write it. And at the same time, for me, as an ESL teacher, so connecting with the vocabulary, the flow of the sentence, punctuation, and so that was like that experience.
No, and just what you were mentioning about the vocabulary expectations, like I'm looking for these things, right? Here's a structure or an avenue, right? You're a superhero, right? Talking about this, right? You're reviewing the sentences that go along with each box or cell of a comic strip. I just love that it gives kids structure and flexibility, and they know what you're looking for, right? And you're able to figure out where they might need, some extra support. So, for some students, like you mentioned, the ones who you might have seen, right, doodling or drawing at different parts of the day, they might love, right, this jump, right, into a more creative endeavor. But I also imagine there are some kids who are a little hesitant, right, to draw and to share. So how do you introduce the concept of creating comic strips to kids who might not have any other prior experience or might be a little low confidence when it comes to creating something like this?
So I think I've encountered, even with my elder one, I think with the elder one, they are more conscious of the drawing, and they want to say, like, yeah, I want this to be perfect. The little ones, they just draw, like, okay, here it is. And I'm open to accept this is their expression, this is the experience they have, this is the knowledge they have. And I think as an educator, it's very important to not judge connected to that. And this is where you open the doors to them. So as soon as I don't judge them, oh, this should be square, this should be round, And for those who are not so confident, so one, I would say, like, okay, you can write a sentence, but maybe it could feel more like infographic, but you will see them. You will see, like, even if you have to write signs and symbols and just the drawing, not necessarily the character. And some of them will just draw, they will draw the recycle symbol, and the right, she wrote the sentence, and the sentence is very potent, And then I think it had to do with how their brain is processing the information. So in one box, I saw, like, one of them drawing the process of recycling, and it was amazing. There were no characters on, but we see, like, the lorry will come and pick the plastic bottle and then bring it to the factory, and and with arrows. So for me, I accepted it because it was so clear and concise, and the sentence was there, the word was there. So for me, it was just great. And I had one or two, they were not so confident in drawing, and so I said, okay, let's try it out as a digital one,
Mm-hmm.
and we went on Canva and we started to build up the comic strip. The template was already there, and then they chose from the different characters and little icons or clip art they want to add, and then they just wrote the sentence. And I think you could see the satisfaction after that, because they said to themselves, I mean, anyway, yes, I did it. They will not say it directly to me, but I could see it through their eyes. I did it. And it was also always, I mean, as an educator, always encouragement, because they are so overwhelmed sometimes with everything happening around them. Having that little boost up, different from what the school is giving, and telling them, okay, you can't draw, it's all right, let's digitalize it. Okay, see, you can do it. So I mean, this is that part. It's also like twofold or even three or fourfold. It's also emotional reassurance for them, because they could feel themselves like, oh, I don't know how to draw. They have that question, they have that doubt, and then being able to observe and see, like, okay, I will not ask that student to go for the drawing. Let's try the digital one. And then the atmosphere changed, the emotion changed, and then they get excited and they say, yeah, I want to put this. Yeah, can I put this and this and this? And this also is a very particular skill, because being able to put all the colors together and so that it looks good. I mean, like the visual.
And that piece, as you're describing that there, is massive, because it's so important what you said about how some of your older students in particular were self-conscious, right, of their drawing, when some of the younger students just jumped right in, right? And we probably feel that way ourselves. Like if someone asked us to do something creative, we might have a little more pause or hesitation than the 5-year-old version of ourselves, right, with doing that task.
Yes.
So what you mentioned really gets to my next question, to unpack together, which is the technology of it all. And you mentioned that using a tool that has, characters you can drag over, things you can move into one place or another, has templates, right, is really great for boosting student confidence and giving them some tools to create something that they're proud to share. So do you have any other tips for teachers on how to integrate technology into the process of creating and sharing comic strips?
I think, like, on the forefront, I will definitely go for Canva. I've not tried the others. There are some other we have been trying, but it's much more like we've created an ebook. So using generative AI. So we tried it out. So they were excited. Yeah, they were excited. Some of them, oh my God, this is so cool. But I think even the generative AI, there are some pictures they are still trying to perfect it or to polish it. So sometimes it gives like cool pictures, sometimes not. But I think it's an easy way. Canva, for me, I've discovered it like some years ago, and I've been using it for many things. And now I believe that if it's possible, if they have the access, of course, to personal laptops or computers, and just log in. And I think first thing first is to play with it. And let them try. Don't do like any specific activities and just say, okay, because on Canva, when you go on it, there are already templates on. And sometimes like the stories can be inspired from the template already there. So they say, oh yeah, this is cool. The template is already there, but I will change the word and I put some colors here. And then when it's presented to them, that when it's finished, and then they say, hey, this is a cool like comic strip, and then it like really get them like into the excitement of I want to do more. And I think being able to do that, teachers would love that. Okay, and then you can get them like a huge activity, 30-45 minutes they can be together. And I think this is important also, that the teachers are knowledgeable about it, so that they can guide and facilitate the session with the students. Otherwise you may feel hesitant, and they will feel it anyway if you don't know the technology. But there's so many things that we can do with technology. so many things.
And yes, I love what she mentioned about tools that are open-ended, that have templates, right? Adobe Express, Book Creator, Storyboard, that there's a bunch of them out there. Even Google Slides, I've got a template
Exactly.
too for comic strips that I love sharing with teachers. There's so many ways to go about it, but jumping into a space with that lower level, right? Not the full activity just yet, is such a great recommendation for listeners. So Danielle, this was so helpful for letting people hear your experience, your tips, what your students are making and creating. I'm going to link out to your LinkedIn. I'll link out to that Edutopia article I mentioned. But if someone wants to connect with you, what is the best way to get in touch?
So the best way would be LinkedIn. So you will just type Danielle Zélin, and most probably, like during in the podcast, you can just tag me on my name, and it's most active, and you can see all the different other activities I'm doing also, not only comic strip, but as an environmental educator also. I do plenty, and I'm a youth mentor also. I create, and I'm actually preparing my next article for Edutopia, which is the blue heart generation, which is like something different from maybe AI or technology. And I've been working with that with my students. So anyway, yeah, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. So this would be my most active professional platform.
Perfect. Well, thank you again so much for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you a lot.
It was lots of fun chatting with Danielle for this episode. And if you have visited the blog in the past, you know how much I love comic strips, using comic books for inspiration. So I will make sure to link out to some extra blog posts and templates that I've got on my website so that you can put her great ideas into action right away. So let's make this EdTech easy with a few key points from the episode. Comic strips provide a creative outlet for students. The use of a 6-box comic strip format helps kids focus. For students who may lack confidence in drawing, try digital tools. Remember, you can find the show notes and all the ways to connect with Danielle by heading to classtechtips.com/podcast and finding today's episode number 292. This episode is sponsored by the blog at classtechtips.com. If you're looking for wintertime activities or ways to make connections between the season and what you're teaching, then head over to the blog page of classtechtips.com. You'll find a search bar where you can type in keywords like winter, Thanksgiving, or bulletin board ideas. You name it. So head over to classtechtips.com/blog and use the search bar to find over 1,000 blog posts and podcast episodes full of ideas to try. Thank you for listening to this new episode of the Easy EdTech podcast. I love creating new episodes for you each week, but I could use a bit of help spreading the word about the podcast. Can you leave a rating or review on your favorite podcast app? Spotify will let you tap on the stars, and Apple Podcasts will let you tap on the stars and leave a 1 or 2 sentence review. Thank you so much for taking this extra step. It helps other educators find episodes like this one when they're searching for EdTech tips.